look a little bit like him.
Are you serious?
Yeah. No joke. I follow him on. I think
This is nicer than his.
yeah.
Oh,
You good?
We are so good right now.
Okay. All right. If we're good, then I will go ahead and kind of start then. My name is Jacob. Huh?
You're right.
There you go. Welcome. You know a little bit more of the world now.
Sorry.
As Casey so nicely introduced me, yeah, I'm a recent graduate of Newman. I work at Marketing Shirt. And first question I want to ask all of you: do any of you like PowerPoints?
Yeah, I mean, do you feel more comfortable doing it?
PowerPoints, but if you feel more comfortable with PowerPoints, then we'll use it. But if we're not going to use it, then I'm going to dramatically close this lid.
I'm learning to be flexible.
Okay, so you like that?
Yes.
A good PowerPoint's good.
Okay. Man, I was really hoping for like a resounding no. Laptop lit dramatically, because even though I made like a PowerPoint, I really don't like it, so we're not going to use it. So. Okay, but for real though, and as much as developers, as much it involves your mind, and your mind is not always logical. We are humans, and today is to be interesting and be weird, as I normally am. So, I wanted to find a better word for this, but I can't find one. I want to do group therapy. Let's all get together. Let's talk about our experiences, feeling workplaces, and let's talk it out. Let's have fun. I will give a lot of information away. So if anyone wants to keep information, especially since we're live streaming this, it's fine. But let's just talk about it. Let's talk about our emotions. Let's talk about our feelings. So, yeah, my name is Jacob Hobby. I'm a recent graduate from Newman, and imposter syndrome. So to explain a little bit more about how I've grown up and how I've dealt with imposter syndrome in my career so far, I want to tell you a little bit. I'll try. I'm not really known for making things short, so feel free to tell me if I need to speed along. This is very interactive. You can boo the presenter if you want. Yes. My first language was C#. I started learning that back in high school in Kansas, a town of 2,500 people. Which I learned in time, and that's where I actually learned to love to be a developer. Because before I wanted to be a developer. Close. That was when I was before middle school.
Astronaut.
No.
Rodeo clown.
Like the artist, you're getting close. All right, I'll reveal. Yeah. Not give me a love of science, but he also gave me a love of cooking. I love cooking because of him. He is one of like the 3 celebrities who, if I ever meet him in real life, I will freak out visibly, very much so, because he's just got such a huge experience for me as a kid. So yeah, I wanted to be a chef, but eventually learned to love to code through my coding classes that I took in high school, and then I went along to Newman, and I started coding a little bit more. And I always really and I was really good at my classes at Newman. I knew what I was doing, and eventually I got the confidence, and I met enough contacts to intern at Coke Industries. It was a big deal for me. I was actually their youngest intern ever. I got in when I was a sophomore in college, and they even hit it harder. That's when the beginnings of. So to explain,
Do you want to turn the projector off? Music.
See? No. Yeah, he was being logical. So here about my schooling too. I was an all-A student all throughout high school, and I actually graduated with honors at Newman too. And as Casey kind of mentioned, I stayed really involved too, just because I had time and I like to be. Started for 2 years. I ran the theater club for a year. I was an executive for the theater club for 2 other years, not being president. I was an executive for the swing dancing club. I also did an internship, the Coke. Like I just do. I thought I was pretty good at it. But when we're working, that's when the imposter syndrome started. You're working at a big company, a global company. You're like, the first few weeks, the first few months are, hey, I got this. And then after that, you realize, oh, wait, I actually have to do work. And oh my gosh, what is this all? Oh no, what have I got? My imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is that it is feeling like you are not qualified for the position. I showed maybe 7 the developer world, but across the nation, and then a study in 2015 here in the U.S. Millennials aged 22 to 37, 7 of the workforce that experience that. So it's a big thing. It affects one of the reasons why you have it is that at one point in our lives. Imposter syndrome, however, is not just for developers, although I think it hits developers a little bit harder because they're expected to learn very quickly in technology. He is just booming. And I got because it touches exciting, even if it's a little scary. So, Coke and how I sort of dealt with it at the time. So at the very beginning, I didn't deal with it very well. In fact, not even the very beginning. I think I only really started to be good at addressing my imposter syndrome approximately 2 years ago. So there's a whole slew of 2 years where I was really terrible at it and I was just managing. Of course, I was keeping myself really busy at Newman and doing a whole bunch of things, and that's one way I was trying to deal with it, was stay busy to not think about it, because that's what I do in a lot of places in my life. I stay busy to not think about the things that, I need to deal with in a better way. I don't know how everyone else deals with the situation, but that is how I deal with it. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because I wanted to have everyone involved in the discussion today, because if I talk about just how I deal with my imposter syndrome, it's not going to affect all of you the same way. We're all very different people, and our brains all work in very mysterious and different ways.
So you deal with your imposter syndrome by becoming more qualified.
More qualified in the thing that I'm not dealing with.
Dimensions.
Yeah. So instead of taking the time to learn more code and to develop it more, I did a bunch of other side activities. I got to know other people better. That was the difference, right?
Distractions.
Yeah, distractions. They're productive distractions, right? They're the ones that, this is a good one. So I'm sure all of you have had code bases you're working on, and there's a main feature that you really should be working on, but get really tired of it, or you get really frustrated with it, you spend some time working on something else. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, as we all know. So I guess that'd be the code way of kind of explaining what I was doing at that moment. Was staying busy and doing other things. It did work out for me. I ended up winning the Obla Award from Newman, which was the big award that they only give one graduate every single year.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool. But I'm stupid. I got it while trying to avoid my imposter syndrome. So kind of a bittersweet award.
Like an overcompensation.
Yeah, exactly. So feel free to jump in whenever you want. So
have you ever went over the Dunning-Kruger's effect, the chart of the Dunning-Kruger's effect experience, and how in the very beginning, you don't know nothing, and then all of a sudden you just know some stuff. So you go to the tip point and you think, hey, I know everything. And then with time, you just start realizing that you don't know some stuff, and then you start going down, your confidence goes down until you reach the expert level where you go back to the top again. And like it was a Nobel Prize winner, I think, and I think it's directly related to what we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, I've never actually seen that chart. I would love for you to show it to me afterwards. But yeah, I think if I had to describe my entire college experience as college taught me that I know nothing, I think that, and I talk to my friends a lot. I don't know if that's a very similar experience for all of you guys. How many of you have went to college? Okay, so like most of you, not all of you, that's fine. Especially in our job, we definitely don't need to go to college. So, how many would you say agree with that idea that college taught you that you know nothing?
Like 70%.
70%.
I learned that lesson earlier.
Okay, that's fair. If you learn that for college, like excellent, that's great. Everyone learns different things in time. So, yeah, for sure.
I went to college for biochemistry, so like has nothing to do with programming, and I knew I didn't know anything about programming.
Yeah. Oh man, my freshman year, I thought I was really good at writing papers, and then my freshman year, I gave one of my best friends, who's now up in law school, one of my papers to like look over and review, and it came back with so much red ink that I was terrified to ever give her another one of my papers ever again. It's just like, oh, okay, apparently I'm not as good as I thought I was. So I think to a lot of people that happens, especially when you grew up in a small school district, which is where I grew up with. I graduated with 98 students in my grade. So some of you had smaller, some of you had bigger. But I think, I know for smaller classes for sure, that definitely can lead to, when you go to a bigger college with a lot more people, you're not at the top of the food chain anymore if you were. So, and if you weren't, then honestly, I'm jealous of you, because people who aren't at the top of the food chain are usually better hustlers than people who are at the top of the food chain. So, talking about that chart though, where you feel like you know a lot of something. Back when I was in coding classes at high school, I didn't think my teacher was that great, so I did a lot of like extra research on the side to try to figure out what was better, and I did stuff differently than what he wanted to, but it was better, and he liked it, so I thought it was really good. And then when I got to college, I realized that, well, even in my classes, I thought it was pretty good, but it was just freshman year. But then when I got to Coke, I realized just how much I didn't know. To this day, I still cannot write a unit test. I couldn't tell you even how to start. Yeah, couldn't tell you.
So easy. Just gotta read the docs.
Yeah, you should. Well, we're getting to that, right? You know, I'll get to that. And I could have learned had I not distracted myself with a bunch of side activities. But everyone processes challenges in different ways. I like to run away from challenges by challenging myself more in other places. Other people would tackle it head on. Other people will just completely avoid it and change majors or something else like that. Everyone processes it differently, and that's why I really want the feedback. You want to say something, Ed?
Can I ask a question to the whole room?
Yeah.
Who had coding classes available in high school? You lucky dog. I would have killed for that.
Do punch cards count?
So
Someone's not that old. They were just stupid. They were doing it when I was in school.
We had nothing.
Where did you go to school at?
I went to Mar Hill Prep School in Atchison, Kansas.
Oh, wow.
Little tiny Catholic school.
Yeah. No, I got to know all the Catholic schools thanks to Newman. So.
Yeah. You've heard of it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, because like people came to Newman because Newman prides itself on being Catholic high school, but college. That was like literally the internal line that they sold each
Was there like uniforms?
Oh no, we didn't do uniforms. But thankfully, we try to be a little bit more liberal. As you can tell, there's actually an LGBTQ alliance club now at Newman. So, Kaleidoscope. A few of my friends started. Once again, one of them up in law school, different law school friend, however. So, very cool. Where was I? I was talking with you. See, I want this to be a discussion. I don't want this to be a presentation. I could do this better. I don't want to. I want to be rough and raw and fun. So, yeah, we were talking about that chart. We were talking about how you know nothing and then you know a little bit more, etc. Yeah. So yeah, I got to Coke and I learned a lot there. In fact, I've taken a lot of the lessons that I've learned from Coke onto where I work right now at Lifeboat Creative, and it has helped me immensely. But yeah, that's where my imposter syndrome started. And you get more nervous the longer that you're in a position and it seems to be working out for you. That's how it was for me too, and especially as an intern. I wasn't a full employee yet, so it makes it even worse. And people are coming and judging your code and etc. And telling you good but blunt feedback at the same time too. And honestly, I probably wasn't good at that point, but at the same time, we all grow in our different ways, different times, and we're all trying to figure stuff out all the time. You keep giving me quizzical looks. I'm curious as to why.
It's interesting.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. I'm trying to draw a conversation out of people, so I will call on people randomly.
This is like, so I don't work in software development. I'm actually a machinist right now.
Okay.
So this is all like way just in a different place from where I am.
Okay.
Even in my position, I'm dealing with imposter syndrome because I work with a lot of people that are experts at what they do.
Yeah.
And they know that, and they lord it over other people. So I'm actually kind of hoping to go into software because it seems like the awareness of imposter syndrome kind of creates a support network.
Yeah.
For that sort of thing. So. Yeah.
Well, first off, thank you for telling that last bit because I was literally going to ask, hey, don't you experience imposter syndrome and where do you work? I think we all have. So thank you for just doing that in general. Number two, I'm sorry about your coworkers. I think it happens I think every company is susceptible to that because people are people. And while I love people, people can be bad. So, and then number three, I think Steve Wozniak was always like the ideal developer for me because he is crazy collaborative. I don't know if you've read Steve Jobs' biography whatsoever. You should. It's a great read. My favorite story is about how a person tried to quit Apple by peeing on Steve Jobs' desk. And he just mentioned it casually to his coworkers. And as he walked into Steve Jobs' office, Steve was sitting in his desk, looking at the guy, going, "Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it?" And he left, and he continued working on it, and eventually ended up making the first Mac. So that's my favorite story. Anyway, random side note. But no, Steve Wozniak, he was a collaborative person. Jobs was the financial and the marketing brains. He knew how to sell something. Wozniak knew the code, and he, for a long time, really wanted to sell like the first Apple II, the software for free and not charge so much for it. So yeah, I think developers are a really collaborative group. So welcome. I hope you join us here soon. So
So when I was in Texas this summer for a job, this is totally wild and unlike anything I have ever done for a job before. I was selling pest control services door to door.
I'm going to interrupt you really quickly. Just because we're live streaming this, can you talk a little bit louder?
Oh yeah. So over the summer, I was selling pest control services door to door, and like in the past, I've always done like coding and stuff professionally, and I don't think I've really experienced imposter syndrome with coding because it's always been something that I've been like glued to. Like at my current job, like sometimes I find myself working on the weekends, and I really enjoy it. And I hate the fact that I'm working on the weekend, but I really enjoy working.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was down in Texas, we would have to go knock on these doors and pitch this sales pitch that they gave us to these random people, after interrupting their evening to try and sell them something that, they probably don't want. Like, they almost certainly don't want, because almost nobody buys it from you. But you knock on like 200 doors a day and you get like 6 people to buy it from you. That's where you make the money. It's really strange because I don't have an issue with speaking in front of crowds, and I can manifest an articulate presentation, and I'm not nervous generally around people, but something about the nature of that interaction where you walk up to the door and you knock on the door and you stare down at your iPad, which doesn't have anything on it. You have to keep the screen off because it's so hot that it'll overheat and then you can't get any work done. Like Texas, it's like 103 degrees out. It's stuff.
Yeah.
So there's something about that kind of cold approach.
You're selling something.
Yeah, but more than that, you know, it's so much more than just selling something. Because I found very quickly that I can sell the shit out of pest control services. I sold 4 my first day. It's not that. It's something about the constant rejection that actually you become unable to tell yourself anything different.
Yeah.
And suddenly you start becoming anxious whenever you hear the doorknob turn, you know, when somebody opens the door, and you start thinking, you know, maybe I'm actually really bad at selling this stuff, or maybe I should just quit, or, you know, maybe, you know, I'm doing all these things wrong, and you know, and the truth is you're just nervous.
Yeah.
But
Can I take that
yeah.
and pivot into something that I kind of realized from that? You're not just selling something, the constant rejection, yes. Part of the story of mine that I wanted to get to at one point is the imposter syndrome is real. I try to run away from a lot of things at Coke, and like and I'm still learning stuff at the same time too, with the limited time that I have. However, I think one of the other biggest parts of imposter syndrome is at the end of my internship, I wasn't offered a job. That's rejection right there. You know, that was like the big rejection. Is like, hey, you've been working with us for 2 years. No thanks, we don't want you. So, honestly, I think that was exactly what I needed. I had been an all-A student, got a bunch of good grades for a long time, and everyone needs a good kick in the pants at one point in their life to realize, hey, they're not that special. You are special.
You know, you were talking earlier about coming from a small school, and this is something I've really noticed over the past like 2 or so years, just all of a sudden for no reason in particular, but the small schools with, you know, small grade schools, small middle schools, they really inflate the egos of the gifted children.
Yeah.
Like something fierce, like it really puts them at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
like growing up, I was told, you know, oh, you're so smart, so much potential, you know, and I feel like there was a 2 or 3 year period there that I completely pissed away because I had convinced myself that I was so much more than I actually was. You know, I could have become that, but I wasn't it already, and I'd been fed a narrative that, you know, I was capable of these things. You know, I was capable of taking on tasks that are too complicated. You know, problems that people have been working on solutions for longer than I've been alive. You know, you're convinced by people that you trust, you know, your peers and your teachers that, you know, yes, you're capable of taking on these things. And it's not just about inflating the ego of the kid. There's also this huge catastrophe associated with the dissolution of that ego.
Yeah.
You know, that's really painful. Even if it is only developed a little bit, to the extent that that ego is developed, it is painful to inevitably undo.
Yeah. As one of those children, can I speak about that? Yeah. So yeah, I'll freely admit I had a big ego. I like to think it wasn't ever an ego that manifested in hate or like meanness to other people. Not even that. High expectations for yourself.
Yeah.
More so like I should be good at this thing that I've never touched before.
I'm saying that because like I had a kind of a similar experience.
Yeah.
Like,
Tell me about it.
So
This is group therapy, guys. We're all talking here. We're all dealing with this.
so like I came to the US and
Can
like
you speak up a little bit just for that?
yeah, so
If you're comfortable.
yeah, sure. So I came to the US in like 2015 from Egypt.
Okay.
And, just studying computer engineering at WSU.
Yep.
And in my first year, I just went out and let's join every organization on campus. Let's see what's up and like,
Yeah.
you know, go and see what people are doing,
Yeah.
how things are done here and stuff. Got like straight A's for all my classes, and then I was so excited. So now it's time to find an internship, and this is when I went on and like signed up for one of their career websites. Went and I had an interview with NetApp, and I got accepted.
Uh-huh.
This is when I I started freaking out.
Yeah.
Because you're in the company. I've never written a line of code. I don't know how to navigate that shell or
Yeah, yeah.
You're like a white piece of paper, and you're just around people that are talking about host bus adapters and like data centers and like fiber channel, all that stuff, and like you're like, oh, and you don't know if you're expected to know that stuff or not. But I think that I took that as a motivation just to start learning very quickly.
Yeah. Instead of running away, you took it on.
Yeah, but at the same point, like now, like I saw this, like when I saw the invitation for the meeting, I was like, hey, this is what I've been suffering from, pretty much, because like in the first year, I was always very afraid that somebody's gonna expect it or expose me as a fraud.
Yeah.
But and at a certain point, I just started to realize and categorize, depending on the person that I'm looking at. So categorize people with experience. So I cannot compare myself to somebody that's been there for like 15 years or 20 years, because experience makes a big difference. But if I just started categorizing like based on the experience and making sure that when I'm putting myself in a comparison with somebody, it's a fair comparison. That way, it doesn't affect me negatively. And I think, hey, no, you're not like doing the best that you can and stuff.
Yeah.
And at the end, I just started dealing with it that way. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard in the beginning, like just getting to understand that there is experience matters.
Yeah, experience does matter because like you can write documentation for days, but it won't tell you. And this is for any job too. It won't tell you the little nitpicky things about your job that make everything flow faster. It won't do that. And if I may use you for an example, point one about beating your imposter syndrome. Be honest with yourself. You don't know everything. Okay, I can't remember his name, but I met him when I first came here. What's your name again? Michael. Are there languages you do not know?
Probably not. Sure.
Yeah.
For the sake of argument, sure.
Because of your experience, you can learn a language a bit faster than most, but it would still take some time to read up on the documentation and mess around with it to get into it, right? Yeah. Something I like to remind myself is that, so schooling, we think, a lot of people can think about, a lot of parents like to talk about how school is like not any different from them back when they were kids or anything like that. It is though. 100 years or less or more of human knowledge has accumulated in that time span since they were in school. Not only are we trying to learn, what they learned, but on top of that, we're trying to learn that extra knowledge that has happened since then, right? Human knowledge is vast. We've been around here for a little bit, Not that long in the grand scheme of the world, but we've still been around here for a little bit. The human brain is amazing and remarkable and can do a lot, but it still takes time to learn everything. And things get harder and harder the more we learn because we're trying to layer and layer on what we already know as a society. You will not know every language. There are more languages being created all the time. What it was like a year ago, wasn't there a language that was based off of the famous Arnold Schwarzenegger? Wasn't there a coding language based off of Arnold Schwarzenegger? Someone remembers this, right?
Joke, but
Yeah, it is a joke, but it's still a language.
Right now, it's a joke.
Those come out too fast to learn too. There was one based on rock and roll lyrics I saw recently.
Emoji script.
Yeah.
That one surely exists.
Yeah, but we're trying to learn more and more all the time, and I think at that point it is okay for you to be real to yourself and ask questions about other people. You don't know everything. I thought I knew everything. You don't know everything, and it's okay to ask questions. I have 3 wonderful coworkers at Lifebook Creative who will answer all of the dumbest questions for me, and like 90% of the time, it's me talking, and then I realize what I was doing wrong in the first place, and I go back and I fix it. But they're still there to hear me, listen me out, and help me when I really need it, and that's okay. So
You gotta verbally reason through it.
yeah, rubber duck debugging.
This is something I've been thinking about a lot recently. So there was a while there where I wasn't doing any programming for years because I was in college studying biochemistry. But
Brian,
what?
Brian, right?
Tom.
Tom?
Yeah.
Okay. There's
When
There's another one.
Yeah.
When I got back into programming, I noticed how remember it being that verbal. It's like mathematics is nowhere near as verbal as programming. Even though the overlap is significant.
It depends.
Sure.
Did you ever have that moment in like an algebra class where like you couldn't figure something out on paper and then you went to explain to your teacher and like, never mind, I got
Oh
it.
yeah, absolutely.
Same thing.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's actually some sort of like high level linguistic processing that goes on when you're reading entire blocks of code that maybe it's something that has to do with declarative programming languages, because maybe I don't experience the same thing with like Haskell or something like that. But the verbal reasoning that you engage in when you're programming is a completely different way to understand what you're trying to do. I find when I don't understand what I'm trying to write very well, I think about it visually.
Yeah.
And once I have characterized its functionality and its inner workings, I represent that explicitly as words, as English language.
Yeah.
And that's really when I know that I have a good grasp on what I'm tackling.
Yeah. I have it's called rubber duck debugging. I think that's the most famous example.
Yeah.
I don't know how it started. I just do know it does involve rubber ducks, and you speak to your rubber duck, and it helps you a lot. What I use instead is a yarn Yoshi amiibo, because Yoshis are adorable, and it's an amiibo. So, and that's all that needs to be said.
Jacob, are you the youngest on your? You said you had 3 coworkers.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're the most junior member.
Oh, for sure. I'm not even just the most junior member of the team. I'm the most junior person in the company.
Okay. So this is hypothetical then, but like, how do you think like having gone through that process will affect how you interact with or treat or just help develop the junior developer that comes in, X years after you?
Yeah. Well, first off, they always said in school that there's no such thing as a dumb question. I think a lot of people would like to disagree with that. However, when it comes to code, I truly believe there is no such thing as a dumb question, because everyone is comprehending and learning and understanding things at a different pace. And it takes a certain mindset, right? Some people naturally have that mindset. Some people have to shift into that mindset. I normally have that mindset, but there are some days, do you guys like get to the flow? Like we're just kind of the world dissolves around you, like you've got music in your ears or whatever, and like you see the Matrix, You will one day. You will. So, yeah. I feel that way some days, because some days I just feel like a genius, and I'm like, yeah, and then some days nothing's coming.
I am the one.
The I am God meme.
Huh?
The meme where the one is I am God, it's the picture from the Atari game, and the other is I don't know what I'm doing, it's the dog with the confusion.
Oh yeah. Isn't that like those viral like ads now going on like mobile games or whatever? Yeah, one of those. Anyway, moving on. Where was I?
How are you gonna treat?
I don't know.
Thanks.
I was thinking about adding something else.
Let me finish this.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's maybe group therapy, but I'm the leader of the group therapy session. I think it's about having empathy. I think for sure, I would have had empathy in the past, but because there's no such thing as dumb questions, if someone asked me something that I would, have been very knowledgeable about, even before I felt imposter syndrome ever, you answer it. You be kind to help them out, because especially with such like a community focus that we have in our developer community, you want minds that don't think like you, because coding is just all about puzzles. You fix puzzles, you figure stuff out all the time, and you want people who will be able to see a different matrix than you do when they get into the flow and be able to solve problems that are weird and outside the box. Not quite the same metaphor, but I want to do this anyway. Twitter is a social media site that I personally really like. However, do you know what Twitter started as first? Do you know what the founders first started as? Anyone? A podcast app. They pivoted, they changed because they realized it wasn't working. Markets are also puzzles, in my opinion. Economy is a puzzle. Economists just happen to have way better tools than us to solve it. So, so we want all sorts of, that's why we talk about diversity so much too, share and the more that we have empathy for the people who are starting out and are brand new to it, the better. Does that answer your question, Casey?
Yes.
Okay, actually, did someone on our live stream ask that question?
No.
Okay.
That one was 100% me.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I didn't know if you were monitoring or anything like that.
I'm posting the, I have no idea what I'm doing. Maybe Chris put
Thank you. Perfect. Love it. Tom, what did you want to add?
So this was something I was talking with someone else the other day about. It was so they found that, in speaking about different types of intelligence, like verbal versus nonverbal, specifically those two. Usually, the higher you are in one, the more normal you are in the other. Not like the lower, but like the less high the other one will be.
You're taking the daredevil approach.
This is important because programming, especially in a collaborative environment, is something that requires, some sort of verbal tango. It's really hard because, like, I find myself often struggling hard to put what I'm working on into words that somebody else can understand. Half the time, it's because you can't even communicate it.
That's why college professors are not the best.
Well,
They know how to explain it.
it takes, you can be a good programmer. You can also not be a good teacher and be a good programmer at the same time. In addition, I think the best way for anyone to learn anything is be able to have to explain it to someone else who isn't in the same field as you. One of the best ways to learn anything. I think I struggled through my calculus classes in high school simply by trying to explain it to people who weren't in calculus.
Well, I wanted to say that I think it's really important that if you're like this sounds so like strange because people don't like talking about like intelligence and stuff as if it's something that you just like wave around.
It's group therapy, it's okay.
Yeah. No, it's like some days you're more smart than others. It's just the truth. And if you're lacking in, let's say, the verbal department, that has no implications for your skills along other dimensions, and it could send you the wrong message because being unable to communicate complicated designs to other programmers might send some sort of impression that you don't actually know what you're talking about. But you might fully comprehend it in a nonverbal way. Like in the same way that you would comprehend an algorithm, a mathematical equation. It's not something you can represent explicitly using words, but you do understand how it works. And I've met a couple of programmers recently that were, they seem like they're quite skilled and they aren't like on the same level verbally as like the people I'm working with, for example. But I still hold them in really high regard because, even though they might not, come out with 1,000 words in a minute to describe what their algorithm does, they're still high skill. And I don't know, I think that that's something that people struggle with. I think they notice their lack of, what's the right way to put it?
Can I rein you in a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to rein you in. I'm going to take a bit of that because I think what we're talking about is a little different but the same, if that makes any sense, which it doesn't, but it will. So let's round this back into imposter syndrome, right? That's the focus of tonight. Yeah, I know. Let me tag you in. Being able to not explain your code might be something that you feel like you're not, maybe a reason that you don't feel like a great developer.
I mean, far more than just explaining your code, like just even if in conversation about other things, like I had this friend the other day who kind of made this comment about like how I have a big vocabulary and how his isn't as big as mine, and I was like really shocked by it. I was like, whoa, like I'm not thinking about these things at all,
But they might be able to explain something better to a different group.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to take that and run with it, okay? Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So being able to explain your code, it's useful, it's helpful. It may make you feel like you're not a great developer sometimes. I know when I went to Coke, that I was explaining code to people, trying to go into meetings, trying to figure out, hey, this is what this code does, etc. Trying to vocalize it was tough for me at the beginning because I wasn't used to it. I was still figuring it out. But it also makes you feel like you didn't know what the heck you did. A lot of us developers like to joke around that we just kind of press buttons until things work. Sometimes it's true. Most of the time it's not. You actually know what's going on. It's just hard to vocalize. For that, it's practicing and getting used to it, working on it, etc. And you just got to be able to explain it, even if it's just to yourself. There's a reason why we love rubber duck debugging so much, and why we talk about that so much, because if you can talk to something, vocalize it, get it out there, it helps practice, it helps you understand the code a little better, helps you debug faster, etc. So, yes, go for it.
I'm just going to throw this in there. I suffer from imposter syndrome in this area.
Yeah.
And that is being able to verbalize or teach is not my capability.
Yeah.
So I may know what it is I want to say, but I don't generally get it out there very well.
Yeah.
Which is strange because I can talk your ear off on the other things.
Yeah.
So what I have done to overcome it is by being here.
Yeah.
And being around people, and I'm taking in their vocabulary, and I'm hoping to assimilate some of the vocabulary and also some of the way that they are able to explain the material, and hope that in my future that I'll be able to do some of that. And I've found that recently there was a gentleman here that I actually was able to help him.
Yeah.
And so it was like, one of those, I can do this. Up until then, I really felt like an imposter being here.
Yeah. I really can't wait until the day I can help someone who wasn't from Newman Code. I will announce that day on Slack when that happens. So, no, I understand. Yeah, well, and that gets me into, I'm going to make this a small side topic because this has something and absolutely nothing to do with imposter syndrome. It's a recurring theme. Something and nothing to do. We, historically, a lot of the ways to explain something also involves using lingo, like business lingo, etc. And historically, while it does make things faster for the people who work in it, it's also been a big barrier to entry for minority groups getting into certain fields because they grow up with the education, they know how to do things, but to speak to these people who have used a certain way of talking and speech for such a very long time, they're perceived as less intelligent or less good at coding when really they're not. Carrying on to that point being made. However, once again, we need these different experiences, we need these different viewpoints of people from all across the board in order to code better. And therefore, trying to, talking is a two-way street. When you're presenting something, we can't just have one person and look up to them as a person with all the knowledge. When someone talks to me, I have to understand what they're saying to me as well. And it's not just language, but also the lingo that they're using. And part of how we deal with imposter syndrome, and if you are a mentor anyway, to help make sure that people don't have imposter syndrome as we continue further, as we learn a little bit more about this together, is try to translate the lingo that person is talking to you with, and help them understand, the community lingo or the business lingo a little bit better, and help them with that, while also trying to understand what's going on. And make sure to ask questions. Just because I've coded for longer or someone else has coded for longer doesn't mean you know everything. Ask them questions if you don't understand what they mean either. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. So,
Yeah, speaking of that, like I think people when I first started, they just see my name and they just think of camels and desert and
yeah.
it's pretty funny.
Are you from Cairo or?
Yeah, from
Yeah,
Cairo.
yeah.
So, I think of the pyramids and
I had some friends at Newman or Egypt. You seem like a Cairo kind of guy.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So we got a little bit of a lull here. I will go ahead and talk about how we've kind of talked about each. I've kind of integrated stuff from my experiences at Coke and whatnot, and also at Life Book Creative, talking about how I've dealt with it. But I don't think I've gone over the full story, so let's go ahead and bring that in. When I was at Coke, experienced imposter syndrome, being around all these incredibly smart, talented developers, not being able to talk about the code I was building, also trying to go to school, that's fun, at the same time, and not having all of your brain resources dedicated to what you're working on and also trying to distract myself with the millions of other activities that I did. I wouldn't say I regret any of those activities because they were fun and I got to grow in other areas, but maybe I could have time delegated a little better. However, things really hit ahead when I didn't receive my internship. I love coding. I didn't think I was going to be doing it for most of my life, but I really enjoyed at the time being told that, hey, like, we love you, we love your community spirit, we love the way you work here. Sorry, you're not smart enough. That was actually something that was told to me. You're not smart enough to be here. You need a little bit more knowledge. And I was like, great. That sent me spiraling. I barely made it through my senior year, which is weird as someone who has normally gotten all A's, etc., because it affected almost all of my life. I'm awful at compartmentalizing. Some people can leave their work with them at work and then go home. Yeah, that's not me. I will take it anywhere and everywhere I go because if I'm going to do something, I'm going to love it 100% all the way. So that affected that. However, it was during that time when I thought I was an absolute awful programmer and maybe I should move on to a different field that I just slowly started to get back into it, work into it, and I took time again to code for me. I took time to code and to learn something. I think part of the reason why imposter syndrome exists too is deadlines. We have deadlines to meet. It's acceptable. Businesses have to run at the end of the day. But code and knowledge is hard. We all have to learn. We all have to figure stuff out. Take some time for yourself. Take some time for yourself to not only relax and get away from work and do something that isn't coding related, but also take some time to learn about some code, but do it casually. Maybe not even learn a language that you need for work. Learn a language that's a little bit different for funsies and to figure it out and to understand logic, because any logic you learn from one language is going to help you in another one. You'll see the patterns, you'll see it, and you won't know the exact syntaxes. Syntaxes being the way that we spell things. Here I'm trying to learn for myself about using the lingo. How we spell out certain things in the languages, but it will also teach you a little bit about the community, a little bit about how that language works. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit philosophical here. Languages are cultural amalgamations of a lot of people getting together and figuring out how to converse with each other. Programming languages are not exactly like that, but they end up being like that because when you build a language and you work in it, people who have to work in it experience their own lingo and create a community because there's problems that need to be solved. And who is a better friend than the person who helped you figure out how to absolute position that one stupid div in the middle of a web page? I know all of my friends in Life Feel Creative are my best friends because they helped me with that multiple times this week. So, also a better amalgamation, a better metaphor. I was in calculus class in high school. That was the worst class I've ever taken in my entire life. It was hard. I cried multiple times. However, one of the members of that class was a person that I had grown up with 2 houses down where I grew up, and I hated her. Hated her guts. She was awful. Just like to punch me a bunch too when I was a little kid. Bullied me a bunch. However, we went through that calculus class, and we ended up being best friends by the end of it because we helped each other out. Shared pain is not always the best way to make a relationship, but it makes a relationship. It forms community, it forms bonds. When you bug fix with someone else, they become a friend. Especially when they treat with civility and humility, honor, and patience. So, I probably just said the same thing a few times. Yeah, I did. That's okay. You're giving me a side eye over there. What are you thinking?
I haven't formulated the thought.
Okay, I'll give you some time. I like calling out people. Yeah. It's fun. What's up, Casey?
I'll process check here. So we've been rolling for an hour, and we're informal, so we can keep rolling as long as people want to stay, but also want to be cognizant of people's time. So if you need to get up and bail, don't feel bad about that at any point. This is pretty informal.
Yeah, I made this super informal. It's group therapy after all. So I thought for my first presentation, I might as well not try to pretend that I'm really good. It's imposter syndrome. So solid metaphors. Yeah. took time for myself. I learned a little bit more about languages, and I got through my classes, and then got hired on a lifeboat, and I just kept working at it. I did the work, and that's really one of the ways that you can really beat imposter syndrome is you do the work and you realize it at the end of the day. But part of imposter syndrome is also not just you; it's the environment around you. You've got to have the right people that you're with too. Working with coworkers that put you down and don't recognize your talent is awful, and no one should have to work around that. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, just a question about your personal experience.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like working at Lifeboat, working at Coke, like, do you think that the environment at Coke really kind of helped you to develop the imposter syndrome? Or is at Lifeboat it's not an issue? I mean,
I think it's a number of combinations. Do I regret ever going to Coke? Absolutely not. Yeah, because it taught me a lot.
I'm just curious, like, how much of this is environment, how much of it is intrinsic?
I think, and once again, the reason why I did not want to speak on this by myself is because I only have my experiences to talk about. And to be honest, the wiser part of my brain says it's different for everybody. Some people self-inflict a lot. Some people, their environments are absolutely terrible. I think most of the time it's around 50-50. I think anyone who's worth their salt probably questions themselves at least a few times in their life significantly, because it means that they're thinking more than just the task at hand. They're thinking about the future. They're thinking about the next thing they want to learn, and the next language they want to learn, or just the next thing. Let's just not even talk about development. The next thing they want to learn. So, but also a good environment can help you beat that really quickly if you let it anyway. People's brains are weird and different, and they don't always work quite the way we want to. Sadly enough, brains do not run on conditional logic. They run on chemistry, which does its own thing.
And I feel like a big part of it is that we all tend to impress, like anybody. Like if you're in a conversation with somebody, you tend to try to impress them, and sometimes that leads to overselling yourself, or like it makes you look like it raises the expectations.
Yeah, that's the danger of fake it till you make it, right? There is a lot of good in fake it till you make it because it helps you believe in yourself enough to get it done. But you don't want to fake it till you make it where you can't get what's expected of you done either. You don't want to create an extra deadline for you. I'm going to stop you really quick because I want to answer his question, and then he had his hand raised.
You're faking it even when you make it.
Yeah, exactly. To answer your question about my time at Coke, I think I'd actually have to split it exactly down the middle, 50-50. I think the environment is a lot better for people who went to bigger schools. It is a campus, and I went to a small school. I graduated from a small school for college. I'm used to being able to talk at issues with the big boss if I need to. And I can't just walk into Charles Coke's store and ask him what's up. At Coke. Huh?
Did you try?
No, I liked my job. I had other opportunities to talk to him, but that's something different. But also at the same time, I knew I could be better had I spent some time to actually research and do the docs. I just didn't want to, and that's all on me. And that's how I dealt with the imposter syndrome. It wasn't even technically an imposter syndrome at that point. Part of imposter syndrome is, we're all inexperienced. We're all going to be inexperienced no matter what. We're going to get experience in something eventually, but we're all going to hit walls that stop us. It's how do you get over those walls? I chose to, instead of find a clever way to go around the wall or punch the wall in the face, I decided to run the opposite direction into other walls that were smaller. So, yeah. And you had something to say.
I just wanted to provide a data point. I think that the environment and specifically the personalities of coworkers, it makes just an enormous difference to my emotional health. I've had 3 programming jobs, and it took me years to figure out what I was even looking for, but it definitely helps if you get on really well with everybody, and not just like being friendly, like a supportive environment. there's somebody you need to be able to talk to, you gotta talk to them even when you don't need to, so that you still have that.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I would do that all the time. I worked in an office, and like I'd have weeks where I didn't need to talk to my boss because I was pretty autonomous. But I would just make up reasons to talk to her because it just kept things friendly, kept it lubricated.
Yeah.
Whole.
When you talk, you learn, right? We all are one single human on a planet full of billions. We haven't hit trillions yet, right?
No.
Okay, thank you.
8 billion
Thank you. Appreciate that.
recently. That's a
Yeah.
relatively new goal.
The fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Is that not self-deception?
Self-deception can be
Which
good.
which becomes external?
Yeah, it can, depending on how you use it, how it fuels you. And once again, my disclaimer for this entire conversation that we're having tonight, not everything will work for everybody. People's brains work differently, people's environments are different. Some things don't work, some things do. And so test the waters, figure it out, be a coder with life, and try different lines of code or different tactics to help yourself. So fake it till you make it, yeah. For me, fake it till you make it at Coke was a lot different than fake it till you make it at Lifeboat. Because fake it till you make it at Coke for me was, yeah, I can get this done in like 2 weeks, even though I have no clue what I'm doing. And yeah, I don't have to ask anybody else for help. Yeah, it can be self-deception and make you think that you're greater than what you actually are. And then it hits you like a brick when it doesn't happen. But at the same time, fake it till you make it can also be a healthy of, I can do this, I don't know how to do this, but I can do this within the deadline. I just need to ask some people and figure it out. And believe in yourself. People's brains are a little different. So
At my last big job, nobody wanted to understand what I did there.
really,
So the only time I had talking with people, because I had so many responsibilities, was if something broke.
Yeah.
But then, other than that, nobody wanted to talk or wanted to entertain the idea of picking up more knowledge.
fake it till you make it comes with a healthy disclaimer that you need to be humble too. You need to fake it so that you can believe in yourself, but not enough that you're not going to ask for help and you're not going to realize your abilities either. It's fake it till you make it works for a certain subset of people who say that they can't do it when they really can. Once again, it all works differently for everybody. I'm sorry that people didn't realize it.
Oh, it was a hindrance. It was a hindrance for me. If I never really had to go and be around people, it would work for me. But that's me. I'm trying to. I'm getting better at not doing that.
Yeah.
But like when I go home tonight, I'll probably sleep really well. And normally, whenever I would start at a new company, I always slept till I got used to the environment. New environments and new people, a lot of times that's not fun.
Yeah.
So if I could have lots of projects, then that was better.
What's your name again?
Chris.
Thank you for sharing, Chris. I appreciate it. Once again, group therapy. So, what's up,
I
man?
don't want to ramble.
You want to ramble?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Was I rambling?
You can't.
Sorry.
No.
You
I
can't.
see you're
You
rambling.
can't ramble 100%, 50%. Deal?
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like a spectrum, right? You have imposter syndrome. And you have like cocky a-hole over here, right? You just want to be somewhere in the middle.
Let's call them, for my purposes and for fun, and so we don't have to reference a bad word. Let's call them the Silicon Valley elite.
There we go.
Okay.
You got a new name. All right. So you want to be somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
So self-confidence is it's a skill. Like any skill, you got to practice it.
Yeah.
So you got to put yourself in situations where.
Some people are better at skills naturally than others. Some
True,
people have
yeah,
to work on them.
True.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to put yourself in situations where you practice that skill. I don't know how you practice confidence. You got to put yourself in challenging situations, but like you also got to like celebrate your victories.
Yeah.
Acknowledge your good points. Like something he was saying, I feel like if you focus on your weak points, you can lose sight of your strong points.
Yeah, I think being aware of what you're bad at helps you to figure out how to be Like, you can't fix a bug in code unless you know what line of code is causing the bug. You know, that's why we spend so long figuring it out. And then once you've got to the line of code that is acting wonky, you can figure out what do I need to do to fix it. You know, similar. So, there's a 25% ramble.
So, and then you,
I keep trying to fall off this chair, don't worry.
celebrate your victories and get comfortable with failing. I love failing. You learn so much from failing. I love sharing my failures because I learn so much from people. I've said something about CT. People love to correct you. They love to help you. That's a nice way of putting it. They also love to be right.
Yeah.
So put your failures out there and they will correct you. And then they're working for you.
Yeah.
You're getting their wisdom.
Yeah.
It's funny because you have all these wizards out there and like, what's the incentive for them to share their knowledge? They're in their ivory towers. They don't want to share. But you post the wrong answer, they have to correct it. They feel compelled. It's like magnetism. They're just like.
Isn't there like an internet rule about this?
There is. I can't think of the name. Cunningham's rule.
Yeah.
Don't post a question. Post the wrong answer.
For the environment that you want, for the internet environment that you're in, yeah, that works, right? But like people's environments are different. Once again, that's the point of like why I'm not the one just speaking. That works for you, and it may work for someone else in this group who is struggling with that. It may not always work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's good practice in humility too.
Yeah. Because practice.
Blame us on Slack for someone.
I don't really game the system that hard, but I do. I'm not afraid to I'm done sometimes. But
You want to say something?
Just the bulk of my experience this far was diving in to the tasks I was assigned or that no one wanted, even if I had no exposure previous.
Yeah.
Because for me, I have to learn some new things every single day, or I'm not happy with my day. So it was just a new avenue to collect some things that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And
Because you want to learn. You want to learn.
yeah,
Because you have to, kind of, too. Right?
well, and then no one else took it, and
Yeah.
so I learned very quickly that if someone asked me, if we could do this with the environment, my response was always, well, let's see. I think my whole life is imposter syndrome, just due to I'm on the spectrum, and so some of my wonky behavior or my recall, which it happens too fast for me to realize that it's happening until it's happening. And now I've learned over the years to harness that, to put it to use for being able to do tasks. But the whole being in environment, socially in the workplace or even not in a workplace still, it just sucks.
But you dive into things that your other coworkers may not necessarily want to learn. And you said it yourself, you imposter syndrome your way through, you fake it till you make it, right? You figure it out, you learn it.
But nothing fake about it. I
You
very
do the
clearly up front that I haven't done this, but let's see if we can do it.
Yeah.
I don't, and I do that because the way that the speed technology moves today, why would I would look dumb if I said it can't be done, and then I found out 9 hours later somebody got it to work. And now if I go back and go, okay, well, we can do it. Well, what changed? 9 hours and some guy that released how to do it.
No, it's not you. It's not you. I'm the one leading this.
So, now, but it got people to leave me to do it.
Yeah.
And so now I'm trying to transition to to a change where I'll, you know, work more with people than not
Yeah.
with people.
Well, once again, work environments can affect how we do things, but I also did want to point out that I think your work ethic and what you do proves that we want people with different experiences, different mindsets, different brains to get into it, because coding is all puzzle solving, and you seem to solve puzzles pretty good.
I don't, yeah, but I don't know how to convey that to employers, existing or prospective employers. I
Thank you for
don't,
coming, guys.
I don't,
It's not.
Yeah.
I don't know how to translate it for them, what I do. What, you know, what can you do? What do you need me to do? And that's what I will do. That doesn't translate well for them.
It's just another bug to solve. It's another problem to solve.
I have not solved it yet.
Well, it takes a lot of experimentation, as we all do. We all have our different bugs to solve, and we're all working on it.
I have a similar issue. I mean, when I, come into a situation that's a problem, great, let's work on it. And I think you know, someone says, what do you do? You know, what are you good at? I don't know. I mean, I can deal with whatever problems someone throws at me, but trying to explain that to someone else is, I just draw a blank.
That was the loudest whispering ever. By the way, I was like, "Jeff, shut up! I can't hear the guy right in front of me." But I had nothing else. Oh yeah, you'll feel less of an imposter once you realize everyone else is an imposter.
And that was the point, that it was group therapy. Thank you for making my point, Ed. Thank you for stealing it from me. No, thank you.
I was like, really?
No, for real though, that was the entire point that I wanted to do group therapy instead of meditation, because yeah, we're all dealing with it. Most of us have talked a little bit about what's been affecting us. All of us have shared a little bit about our lives, most of us anyway. And it just goes to show you, you're not alone. If once again, I'll pull up the statistic that I learned 5 minutes before I spoke. If 70% of aged 22 to 37 people in America feel like they have imposter syndrome, that's a lot of people. just to tell you. And if around 67% of just all of the UK, no matter what your age, is feeling imposter syndrome, that's also a lot of people. The fact that you're not alone just kind of goes to show you that, everyone's trying to figure it out. And whether you take solace in the fact that no one knows what they're doing and they're trying, or you are terrified by that thought, that's for you to decide. But at the very least, you can know that the person that you're interviewing with, your coworker, they also might be feeling the exact same feeling that you're feeling.
Yeah, and I think the worst thing that can ever happen to you is getting to work in that state where you're not sure about what you're doing yet.
Yeah.
With somebody that's like, how come you don't know this?
Yeah.
Man, come on, you don't know how to deal with that in the beginning, but after a while I just started being like, oh, thank you for telling me that, just getting the knowledge out of what they are saying and just, that's it,
Yeah.
I like details, and if you give me something to do or need me to do something, I'm going to want a lot of details, because I don't want to have to continuously stop